This video is brought to you in collaboration with WoWhead.com. Hello everyone! A brand new expansion, The War Within, looms on the horizon. Part 1 of 3 expansions that are gonna tell the World Soul Saga. I've had a lot of you ask if I had videos covering the story so far. Some of you dipped out with the Shadowlands or with Dragonflight, or you haven't played Warcraft at all but you're ready to jump in with this saga. With that in mind, I've made this video to give a general understanding of the story going into the War Within. A spoiler-free need-to-know video, which hopefully is going to improve your experience going into the expansion and make you go like, oh right, so that's how it's all connected. With that intro out of the way, let's begin, shall we?
The fate of our world rests upon the edge of a knife. And our battle lies deep within.
A good foundation to know, a good place to start, is that we've been told that in the Warcraft universe, there are 6 cosmic forces constantly fighting with each other, fighting for dominance, like an eternal tug of war. While it's in their nature to compete, to constantly vie for power over each other, one must never be allowed to fall, or all worlds would fall into chaos. The forces are Order and Disorder. You might know the Titans for Team Order, and the Titan Sargeras and the Demons for Team Disorder, meaning that you can swap sides and alignments. There's Death and Life. Death was a big subject of the expansion Shadowlands, whereas its counterpart of Life, it was a bit touched upon with the Emerald Dream, but there's a lot more room to explore. And then the big one that they mentioned during BlizzCon presentation as the theme for the War Within and the World Soul Saga, Light and Shadow. Light versus the darkness, but not as simple as good versus evil. These forces are competing, and Azeroth, the world that we live on, it houses a powerful entity within. And some of these cosmic forces, they've been trying to claim her for one reason or another. The Burning Legion is probably the most well known, constantly invading the world, making portals, shooting out their fel, with ultimately their leader Sargeras getting real close at getting the job done, plunging his sword into Azeroth and nearly wiping us all out. Just in time, we managed to pull him back and save the day, ending the Burning Legion's burning crusade. But of course, the threat of the demons is still out there. But more recently, we saw the domain of death, with the jailer announcing to all that
death claims the soul of your world.
Another we put in their place and saved the day. Now it's the Void's turn again, who once upon a time tried to claim Azeroth by infecting it with the old gods. The days that they ruled the planets, they're known as the days of the Black Empire, and life was pretty good for the old gods. We traveled through time, and we got a peek as to what Azeroth looked like back in the day. Old gods reveled in chaos, pitched the enslaved elemental lords, Ragnaros, Alakir, Pharazane, and Neptulon against each other, enjoyed the carnage while corrupting the soul within the worlds. Organic matter seeped from the old gods' blighted forms, giving rise to 2 distinct races. The first were the cunning and intelligent Naraki, also known as the Faceless Ones. The second were the Akir, insectoids of incredible resilience and strength. As the physical manifestations of the old gods' will, both of these races would serve their masters with frenetical loyalty. In time, centuries later, the Akir would evolve under the influence of the old gods. The old god K'Fun would morph them into the Karaji. Yashiraj had them evolve into the Mantids, whereas Yaksharon's influence turned them into the Rubians.
The end of days is finally upon you, and all who inhabit this miserable little seedling.
So the Black Empire was having a grand old good time, ruling the world of Azeroth. That is, until the Titans came, until the domain of Order defeated and imprisoned them. Not directly. Titans are kinda big and powerful. Doing it themselves would have done more harm than good to the planets and the soul within. So they crafted Titan Keepers, who would fight the war for them. And in turn, those Keepers, they would craft Titan Forge to help them out, help carve out the world and bring order to the planets. Titan Forged, like the Vrykul, Mogu, Mechanomes, and Irvin. First, the Elemental Lords were defeated and sent to the Elemental Planes. Ragnaros to the Firelands, Featherzane to Deepholm, Neptulon to the Abyssal Maw, and Alakir to Skywall. Then the old gods went down and were imprisoned as well, as getting completely rid of the old gods that was not possible. Their tentacles had buried too deep, they feared that the soul would be hurt too much. Machines were then slammed into the surface of the planets, which we've been told were there to help grow and mature her.
And really the big question for all the marbles: what have the Titans actually been doing since the dawn of civilization? What is the real purpose of all of their cute little installations slammed into the side of the planet? Do we know everything we need to know about their real intentions for our world?
But perhaps this was more the Titans doing what the other cosmic forces had been trying to do: lay claim to the soul of the world. Time is going to reveal what their true intentions were, but for now, legends speak of the time that the Titans brought order to Azeroth, and among them we have the Titan Eonar the Lifebinder. Seeking to bring hope and healing, she carried a gift given to her by Elune, and Elune is still extremely mysterious, a goddess entity connected to the domain of life. More to be revealed. The gift was a branch of Gahanir, the Mother World tree. The Titan believed that the influence of life would drive the darkness away, and so she planted it, and the branch swiftly grew into a tree, its roots extending deep below the surface. Eonar smiled, for everywhere the roots stretched, new life emerged. She called the tree Elune Ahir, in honor of her great love. Seeing how she is the Lifebinder, perhaps not that strange that she feels drawn to Elune, a being connected to the domain of life, once again showing that even though the Titans are connected to the domain of order, they can branch out. Not Amantul though, their leader, who saw what she had done and decreed it not to be order, and so she had infected the world with uncontrolled chaos. The High Father took hold of the World Tree's trunk and tore it from the earth. Eonar wept bitter tears that rained down upon the resulting crater, but as she peered down upon the sundered earth, the Titan realized a truth she did not share with the High Father. Though he had destroyed the tree, its winding roots still held firm beneath the soil, feeding upon her tears. It is said that much later, as the world entered a new age, mysterious guardians arrived who dedicated their lives to protecting the roots. We'll hopefully learn more about said guardians, and while Amantul's actions here might have caused Eonar a whole lot of grief, or perhaps a bit over the top, make no mistake. Life and light, they've shown to be capable of being just as aggressive, just as devastating as the other cosmic forces. Balance is important, but there are always those seeking to tip the scales.
For so long, I've watched you all.
Beginning for the War Within with the ever-smirking Zelot. We don't know where she comes from. We don't know how long she's been around. We don't know what it actually is, but she seems to be part of Team Shadow. For all we know, she might look like a beautiful faceless one, as the body that she's parading around in is not her own. A lot of unknowns for someone who's been around for such a long time. We meet Zelot for the very first time during the Expansion Legion, where Shadow Priests picked up the blade in which he was contained, and they had a whisper to them while fighting off the biggest and last Legion invasion as of yet. As I mentioned, Sargeras managed to stick his sword into the world, but total devastation was prevented by us, by Shadow Priests wielding Zelot. Then they sacrificed the power earned to cleanse the blade left behind, but by no means the end of Zelot's involvement. We would find it again, reunite, gather their body dimensions, until she handed us over to the old god Nuzov, and per their deal was liberated from her blade.
A fair exchange. Shadows guide you. My dear friend, we will meet again. I am certain of it.
While the heroes would go on saving Azeroth and cleanse her from the old god's infection, Zelot remained in the shadows. We had to miss her for a few years, until Dragonflight, where she has the Primal Incarnate Iridikron working with her. Iridikron, he has no love for the Titans and the order that they forced upon the worlds, so he trusts the Void's hunger to see them extinguished, providing Zelot with a powerful trinket called the Dark Heart, which has the ability to absorb magical power and converting it into shadow. Iridikron promised that we won't see him again until the Titans face the reckoning, while Zelot is going to be the one guiding us into the next expansion. manipulating events from the shadows, a harbinger of sorts, but for what exactly? Well, turns out that Zelot is not just known to those on the planet of Azeroth. We've got Locust Walker, an ethereal who has trained many, including Alyria Windrunner, on how to control and use the Void as a weapon. From him, we learn that he knows about Zelot and finds that her going by the name of Harbinger is rather fitting. Once upon a time, his people on the planet of Karesh, they heard a similar song that's currently ringing out on Azeroth. Radiant visions that warned them before the world was consumed by the Void Lord Dimensius the All-Devouring. History tells us that it was the Kareshi that had summoned Dimensius into our domain. But is that all there is to it, or did Zelot play some role?
I long for the day our masters can truly pass into this realm. You have only seen fragments, shadows, the faintest of echoes. Ask the ethereals what one of these manifestations is capable of.
The war between Karesh and Dimensius would see the people try to hold the line and be transformed into the ethereals. You might remember fighting with them all the way back during the Burning Crusade, teaming up and taking on Dimensius, while millions of ethereals cheered for our victory. Apparently, Dimensius is still out there, so perhaps a minor change to the story. Perhaps all we faced back then was just a small portion of Dimensius' power. Who knows, but Zelot's involvement could be a cool thing. She loves to manipulate after all, even when her form was imprisoned within a dagger, as we learn from Azeroth's history from the scrolls connected to the artifacts. This way, she had trolls make blood sacrifices to resurrect Kithix, who was then slain at a great sacrifice by the trolls, the survivors establishing a settlement atop the site where they'd killed it. You now know it as Zulaman. She also offered the Dark Iron Queen Modgut power during the War of Three Hammers. A war in which the three dwarven clans, who had once lived together in Ironforge under their High King Modemus Envelmar, they now went at each other. And at the most critical moment, once Modgut had released darkness upon Grim Batol, history tells us that Zelot abandoned her. And as she lay dying, she repeated one phrase over and over again. You promised. The darkness unleashed upon Grim Batol, it would make the place uninhabitable for the Wildhammer dwarfs, and its corruption would mutate those still stuck inside into the Skardin. In turn, the death of his beloved wife Modgut would influence Sorcerer Thane Fauruzan, leader of the Dark Iron Clan, and then influence his spellwork, causing him to accidentally summon Ragnaros back into Azeroth. This created the Blackrock Mountain, and led to the enslavement of the Dark Iron Clan to the Fire Lords. And the last history record that we have to speak about, that is Natalie Celine, who, through Zelot's whispers, dove deeper into the power of shadow. In the ebb and flow between these two forces, one can find power and knowledge beyond anything the Church of the Holy Light had ever revealed. Of course, there were consequences, but we brought her back during Legion, while her teachings they would go on to influence the Forsaken and the rise of the Cult of Forgotten Shadows, which means that the influence of the Void was spread amongst both the Alliance and the Hordes. Now there might be more moments, perhaps even some time travel involved. Point being, Zelot has dipped her claws into plenty of moments in history, kinda like the Ring from Lord of the Rings or the Jailer, but on a much smaller scale. What she wants to accomplish is still to be revealed, but her actions do not appear to be random. While the Locust Walker thinks that she wants to repeat what happened to Karesh right here in Azeroth, the Void, Dimensius the All-Devouring, might be coming for the soul within this world. That's the War Within. The war over what's within Azeroth. But the title and theme goes deeper than that, as there are plenty of wars going on within some of our main characters along for the journey. Characters like Alyria Windrunner, that student of the Locust Walker. She was not always the incredibly powerful Void wielder we see her as today. Once, she was an incredibly powerful ranger, part of the Alliance of Lordaeron, as they rallied to defend the world against the first invasion of the Orcish hordes. The story where it all began, Warcraft 1 and 2. A war that Azeroth would win, closed to the Dark Portal, which the Orcs had used to teleport from their home world of Draenor. But the Dark Portal would reopen. The Orcs would return, and this time the Sons of Lothar, named in honor of their fallen leader Endwin Lothar, they stepped through the portal themselves to stop the Horde once and for all, resulting in closing the Dark Portal from Draenor's side, as the planet blew up, transformed into Outland as we know it as today. Our heroes did manage to survive this catastrophic destruction, But Azeroth didn't notice, not until the Dark Portal opened up again and we reunited during the Burning Crusade. All this time, their fate had been unknown. Great statues in front of Stormwind honoring their sacrifice, but here they were in the flesh. Khadgar, Curdun Wildhammer, and Dun of Trollbane. All that was missing were Alyria and her beloved Turellian. Their son Arator, left behind as a baby before they'd stepped through the portal, he'd come all this way to find them, as Arator is haunted by dreams that do not seem to change. A crimson skyline envelops me, as Legion, numbering beyond comprehension, battle in the distance. I kneel before the body of a man, presumably my father, and weep, as he is gasping for air, his body wholly crushed. He whispers something. Despite every effort, I am unable to hear what he is trying to tell me. Nowhere on Outland were they to be found, and they wouldn't show up for a very long time. Not until the Expansion Legion. You see, Alyria and Turellian had been picked up on Outlands by the Army of the Light. This army, led by the holy Naru Zera, they were fighting against disorder, a massive long war against the Burning Legion. Turellian felt right at home amongst all these light wielders. The light was strong within the human paladin, and through Zera's blessing, his lifespan was extended, far beyond what a regular human would have. A good thing too, as where they were fighting, time didn't exactly work the same as it did on Azeroth. To us, they've been gone for around 25 years. To them, it's been thousands. Then our Alyria, she tried to fit in and use the light as well, but it didn't feel right. The light did not hold the answers that she needed, nor the power to keep those she cared for safe. It was the void that would offer her that path. And so Alyria went searching for the Locust Walker, proving herself worthy of his teachings, as there was a touch of destiny upon her.
Perhaps one day she would fall to madness. Perhaps one day she would betray her allies. She was capable of it. But she would never, not in any possibility, not in any circumstance, harm her son. She would never lift a finger against Arator. Even if he killed her for what she had become, she would accept it gladly. The weight of that truth kept her afloat. And she could feel the shadow's confusion. It did not understand the bonds between mortals. It did not understand that there were some things that could not be corrupted.
That time may come one day, but for now, Turellian and Alyria have been incredibly powerful allies. They helped stop Sargeras and the Burning Legion, and then on Azeroth, they've returned to the side of the Alliance, but Alyria hadn't visited her home of Quel'Thalas for quite a few centuries. In that time, the High Elves turned into the Blood Elves and have joined the Hordes, but the beloved Sunwell still stands. Even though it now has a core of a Naru in it, Alyria felt the call to visit her old home. But the void is not always easy to keep under control.
I did not intend for my presence to...
Enough! We need to cleanse this corruption before the well is lost.
Something seeks to open a rift into the chamber. If it comes through, we may lose the Sunwell.
I can close the rift, but I will need help.
She is a badass void wielder, but those whispers are constantly assaulting her mind, and as we can see, sometimes it gets out of control. That's Alyria's War Within. She has gone on this path in an attempt to secure a future for her loved ones, like Arator and Turellian, but the more that she dives into the void, the further the rift becomes between her and her two paladins. The very things that keep her anchored and capable of controlling the void. They're also the things that she pushes further away the more she dives into the void. Arator has had his visions. What would happen to Alyria if those visions would actually come true?
Your mortal struggles, your proud defiance, the loneliness you pretend not to feel.
From powerful void wielder, let's move on to someone with an incredibly powerful connection to the light. Or, well, he used to anyways, Endwin Rin. Named Endwin in honor of the great Endwin Lothar, who lost his life defending the world against the first Orcish hordes. Lothar came from a long line of humans, going all the way back to the time in which they still lived in separate tribes. But modern man could see that humans separated are weak, humans strong together. Thoradin of Arator went to work on uniting the human tribes through politics, religion, and sometimes violence, setting up the Empire of Arator, led by King Thoradin. Their might would be recognized by their neighbors, the High Elves of Quel'Thalas, who were warring it out with the local Amani trolls, the same ones who had set up Zulaman. The trolls would become a massive threat for both sides if they weren't going to take care of this. So the humans and elves united, worked together, elves even teaching the humans some magic. Together, they ended the troll wars and dealt a devastating defeat. One the Amani trolls would never really recover from. For many days and nights, the humans and High Elves would celebrate their victory. In time, this mighty Arathi empire would spread out and form new city-states, places like Lordaeron or Dalaran. The human kingdom became vast, but the allegiance with the elves would last throughout the ages. If and when the line of Arathor would ever be in need of their aid, the High Elves of Quel'Thalas would be there for them whenever and wherever they needed it. That's how Lothar managed to get their aid in the war against the Horde, as Endwin Lothar served in the Kingdom of Stormwind, the kingdom who was closest to the Dark Portal and felt the might of the Horde first. Its survivors set sail to Lordaeron and formed the Alliance of Lordaeron, reusing the lesson of the past, stronger we're together. Endwin Lothar would not make it to see the end of the war, but the sons of Lothar would honor his memory, and his charge, now King Varian Rin, would name his son Endwin in honor of the man who meant the world to him, who had saved him and his kingdom. Our Endwin's journey would see him take over from his father, as he lost his life at the start of the Expansion Legion, doing what a king must do, leading the Alliance through great trials, even managing to get an armistice going with the Horde, peace between the factions that is still standing strong to this day. Then with Shadowlands, Endwin was kidnapped by Sylvanas and the Jailer, dominated and forced to serve. We do not know every moment Endwin was forced to spend with the Jailer, forced to spend in the Shadowlands, but the aftermath is clear.
Each time he dominates my will, I feel myself slipping further away. Is this what you felt when Arthas raised you, Sylvanas? Hollow, empty, everything you once were, consumed by darkness.
Save yourselves! End this!
Do you not understand? This one is bound to me. Fulfill your final purpose. Annihilation. The fate of all who carry my blade.
My son. This blade does not belong to darkness. It was forged by valor.
And also by honor.
Its legacy and ours are with you, even here.
Now, let it be finished.
Something dark is coming, Anduin. The world needs your light again. My son.
I am not that person anymore! I have no light.
The boy king does not know if the thrill that he felt inflicting death and mayhem, if that was his own or merely the Jailer's. The line between the two is unclear to him. The man that he thought he once was has shown to be corruptible. And so he has lost all faith in himself, in his ability to lead, his ability to call upon the light. That is why he has left others in charge, like Turellian, to lead his kingdom, where he's been on a quest of self-reflection and discovery. He's trying to deal with his trauma, and that is going to be his war within. Despite the ghost of the past still haunting him, he still answers the call of the voice. Azeroth calling him back into action. Will he manage to find a light at the end of the tunnel? Or is the darkness going to swallow him whole?
You cling to hollow faith that sustain you.
Now, not the first time that the voice of Azeroth is called out, but understanding what she's trying to say is a little bit hard for regular mortal ears. Luckily, she has provided us with a speaker, Magni Bronzebeard, former king of Idaforge and the dwarves, who during the Cataclysm went through an ancient Titan ritual to communicate with the lands. Back then, the Cataclysm was approaching. A lot of people were dying, and they had no clue what was going on. Communicating with the lands was not the only thing that happened. Magni actually became one with it. The King of Diamonds, meaning that the throne of Idaforge was now empty. The perfect time for Magni's daughter Moira to come back home. She'd been kidnapped by the Dark Iron Dwarfs, the same that had been enslaved to Ragnaros at the Blackrock Mountain. All her life, Magni had treated Moira like she was less, all for the crime of being born a woman instead of a man. Dagran Fauruzan, the current leader of the Dark Irons, he treated her in ways that she'd never experienced before, and love grew between them. Love and a child, still in her belly, when so-called heroes of the world had been recruited by her father to go into the mountain and save his daughter, murdering the father of her child and breaking her heart. After manipulating events during Classic, and have heroes come into the mountain to take care of Ragnaros and anyone that would have stand in the way of the Dark Island's freedom. Moira returned to the empty throne in Idaforge, expecting to just take it from her father, but that was not gonna happen. Too many political problems and history to simply have her take the throne. Instead, the Council of Three Hammers was formed. Dark Iron, Bronzebeard, and Wildhammer, all represented under the mountain again, all had a leader and a voice for the future. Perhaps one day, when her child would come of age, he could claim the throne and lead all of them into the future. At first, Moira was a bit sneaky and tried to manipulate things, but soon enough she ruled honestly, showing the others that they could trust each other, which was no small feat considering their history, right? But she would show them that the clans could all live under one roof again. They carved out a future in the mountain, while her son has grown, and her father remained silent underneath the ground, until the Expansion Legion. Azeroth called out, warning not of the coming of Dementius, but the coming of Sargeras. Magni was released and transformed, able to hear her voice and try to interpret what she was trying to tell us. There would be no drama over who gets to run Idaforge, as he had a higher calling now. A journey that would take us all the way beyond Azeroth into space, where we saw the return of the Titans and the imprisonment of Sargeras. Not before the Dark Titan managed to stab Azeroth though, and those wounds were going to need healing. The speaker could not lose her, and so we were recruited to help him out, eventually getting rid of the entire old god infection that had been plaguing her since the beginning, since the time that the Titans imprisoned them and brought order to the planet. While the old gods may be gone, their aftermath still lingers, of course. There's their blood, the bug creatures are still around, eldritch horrors abound to assault our minds, but the day was saved and the job complete. So now what? What about Magni Bronzebeard? He is still stuck in his diamond form, he can't even feel the touch of his kin, and while he was brilliant at healing Azeroth's wounds, the rift between him and his daughter, it grows ever deeper, and his grandchild is quickly coming of age. What once seemed like a higher purpose and a great destiny, it now lingers as a punishment for a job well done. Is this going to be his fate? Or will the War Within reforge his family ties and bring back some sense of purpose?
You convince yourselves that you are of purpose. That your great deeds can make a difference.
And then the last one that we're going to be talking about today, that is another that followed the voice and traveled to Silithus. It is Froll, former war chief of the Horde, who passed on the title to Garrosh Hellscream with the Cataclysm, but Garrosh in charge caused quite a bit of ruckus amongst the Horde and Azeroth as a whole, so much so that the Allies and Horde had to rise up against him and kick him out of the mantle of war chief. It would be Froll to eventually execute Hellscream for his crimes, but doing so had quite the emotional effect upon the world shaman. Garrosh had never asked to become the war chief, and he felt like he had to pick up Froll's pieces. Meanwhile, Froll had never wanted for Garrosh to become an emboss of an expansion. While he was the one to land the death blow, he took no joy from it, and that inner turmoil, it had caused him trouble connected to the elements. If he's going to have a war within to deal with, then that could be it.
But deep down, you know the truth. That when all your illusions are burned away, all that is left is your fury.
That is to say, if they're gonna give Froll a war within, Or perhaps his role is going to be more to guide the next generation, considering his vast amount of experience and wars that he already fought both inside and out. A similar question can be asked for Jana Proudmoore.
You revel in power that cannot withstand what is to come.
Like Froll, she too is a powerhouse, has a lot of experience and fought her wars already. She even became the leader of the Kirin Tor for a while, set up in their floating magical city of Gul'dan. That position is now in the hands of Archmage Khadgar, while Jana returned home and has become Lord Admiral of Galtiris. Perhaps it is time for new characters to get the spotlight, and have this older generation share their wisdom and insights during the War Within.
And in the end, your glorious fury will be mine.
Hopefully you now have the relevant story that came before, which I hope is going to work out for those jumping into the War Within. The story is ever growing and evolving. Chronicles Volume 4 is around the corner. More is going to be revealed, and of course, all of it will be covered. But for now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Say that you want more details on all the things we talked about today, or you just want to read up on it in your own time, then check out the related WoW article in the description down below. As for me, I genuinely hope that this video was informative and that you could follow along and that I didn't go too deep on certain subjects without explaining it properly. Say that you do have questions left, say that you have topics that you would like me to discuss, or maybe you're wondering if I discussed them before. By all means, leave me comments down below or look me up on the Twitch where I stream. I'm always welcome for questions, or our Discord, which is available. By all means, come hang out. Love to see you there. And until next time, everybody. See ya!